Hello and welcome back to SuperCoach Edge, and we are coming out of round 5, and it feels like there's a bit of a running trend now over the past couple of weeks at the very least that we had another ordinary round, unfortunately, but I think it was kind of par for the course, looking at scores from other coaches across various leagues. So it was another tough week, unfortunately. It wasn't helped, of course, by the first game being a complete washout in the form of the Sixers and the Heat. And that's where I felt it the most, and was kind of a bit of a domino effect from there on out with my own team. So let's jump across quickly and see how we performed overall. So ended up scoring a 437, which was pretty shitful, ranked inside the top 33%, which is pretty bad. Considering, I think it was in the first round or two, I was in the top 1% in terms of scoring for a given round. In terms of the season rank, no surprises here. Ended up sliding 195 spots to now sit ranked 423rd overall, which, I mean, isn't the worst at this stage, but, we're virtually over the halfway point of the season. And, the high point, or high watermark, we'll call it, that we were at was 222nd overall. So, we're almost, double where we were. But, there is time, at least another 4 rounds to come back and claw our way back to the higher rungs of the leaderboard. So let us have a look at our team as we jump into that, and we'll go sort of play by play. In terms of the trade-ins that I did, you would have seen in the previous video, which I recorded, was around about a couple of minutes before the round kicked off, and I did speak about the first game being the Sixers and the Heat being a probable washout, or at least rain affected largely. Ended up being a complete washout, and I was scrambling to try and get those Sixers and Heat players out of my team, and just unfortunate in my case, and I'm sure many of you tuning in would have been, in a similar boat as well, just in terms of the number of Sixers or Heat players that you had in your team were just a bit too many. Unfortunately, only had the 3 trades to work with. Ended up trading out Dwarcius as one such player, traded out McSweeney as well, and traded out another Sixers player. Let me just have a quick look as to who that was. Sorry, let me have a look at the trade history. It was O'Neal from the Renegades, which didn't help because he was not selected for the Renegades. So it meant that I had to trade out him, where I probably would have traded out another Sixers player in the form of, say, a Jack Edwards, or more than likely Philippi of the Sixers as well. So, having virtually the 3 Sixers players, having McSweeney, and then likewise as well Wildermuth, who's just languishing on my bench, and I'm praying that he actually plays a game at some stage or another, but at this stage he looks as though he's just going to be another loophole player for the remainder of the year, which is pretty disappointing. But having said all that, I think, it was just the situation that I was in. You can't really help that, given I had, one too many Sixers players, and what it meant was I had to virtually swallow a donut off the back of that, because Liam Scott, who I traded into my team, unfortunately, on the Strikers double, and was out for their second game in their double game round. So what it virtually meant was I was gobbling up a donut there. And then to compound things, going through, I'll just cherry pick a couple of players here. Ashton Turner, who, I've sung the praises of throughout the course of the season to date, having been a very nice cash cow. Had I had another trade up my sleeve, and if it wasn't a rain-affected week, he would have been on the chopping block 100%, because of the fact that his break-even was climbing up, and because I think he's been very, very lucky in terms of being able to come into the Scorchers lineup where the top order's been bowled out, where traditionally they wouldn't. They've been quite strong in previous seasons. The Scorchers and Turner being able to take the crease has happened more often than not, which is quite strange. So I thought, he's kind of due for a bit of a down game, but having, to take precedence with getting rid of these Sixers and Heat players, it meant that I had to, keep Turner. And as it turned out, Turner, he returned a score of 0. So it meant that the flex, which would have helped cover the loss of Scott being I did not play, a virtual donut. I virtually had to gobble a traditional donut in this sense, because Jordan, as my flex, he covered Scott, and I didn't have anyone to cover Turner's 0. So that 0 counted in my team as a donut. So unfortunate there, but it is what it is. In terms of guys that I traded in, I opted to trade in early on Billings and Agar, and likewise Jordan as well. A lot of those, I think all three of those were virtually motivated by low break-evens. As it turned out, all three of those trades, or at least two of those three, were absolutely disastrous. Billings, he was pushed down the order for some reason, which was quite strange because Sams and Bancroft were both ruled out of the remainder of the game and obviously weren't able to bat. But even so, I thought Billings would have been pushed up the order. No, Jilks was actually pushed up the order. To his credit, he actually batted quite well, Jilks, but he's not the traditional, lethal batsman like Billings is. So I thought that was quite strange and that hurt me. I only scored the 13 Billings. Agar only returned a score of 4, which, in itself was quite hurtful, having, to gobble the 0 from Turner as well. But the funny thing is that Wes Agar had that massively low negative break even, and he still went up 12.4k. So he saved a little bit of money heading into this round. Of course, the Thunder have the double this round in round 6. So I guess that's the silver lining if I want to look at it that way. But, points on field count for more. So that really did annoy me with Agar only scoring the 4. And then outside of that, Chris Jordan was my other trade in. Only scored the 28. I say only because he had a pretty poor game by his standards, took a wicket late in the piece and came in and actually, scored the winning runs as well to round out that game against the Strikers. But low by his standards. I think it was actually one of his lowest scores of the season. His second lowest of the season. So brought him in early because he, again, had that negative break even. Still went up 17.2k, so has saved me a little bit of coin. But yeah, I probably could have opted for another player. But having said that, his break even heading into this week is a break even of 11. So I think if I didn't have him in my team, I'd probably be looking at getting him into my team this round anyway. So it's probably much of a muchness. But let us go through ever so quickly the rest of the side. So Philippi, he was benched given the fact that the game was looking like it was a washout. Didn't help in the end, but he sits there on my bench. Overton, he ended up being my captain, and I was kind of toing and froing in terms of my vice captain between Southo or Stoinis. And as it turned out, if I was to go for Stoinis, I would have, he scored 59. I would have been, 1 point less than Overton, who scored a 60. But I was also weighing up because of the fact that they were playing, relatively early, first up, Connolly. And if I went down that route, it would have won me my ever so important Cash League match, which I ended up losing by 5 points. So, yeah, skin of my teeth, and it's been a terrible, terrible, season when it comes to head-to-heads. Second highest scorer in the league and the second most points against, which has kind of happened in NFL fantasy. Same thing there. AFL SuperCoach was a similar thing. I think, the top 3 high scorers and had the top 3 most points against and missed the finals, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's just a terrible run of form when it comes to head-to-head leagues in SuperCoach and fantasy when it comes to NFL fantasy. But anyway, that's by the by. Maxi, who ended up scoring a 65 and looked really good with the bat. Again, in the outfield, looked incredible as well, taking catches that win matches, as it turned out, with Maxi. So happy that I held on to him, and I think he's the sort of player that has that real high upside that you kind of want in your team. So if you don't have him, you could probably hold out another week. His break even is now he's pretty much bottomed out by his standards anyway. His break even 72, projected score of 68, but the Stars have finally hit some form. Likewise, Maxi. I'm hopeful that he's actually pushed up the order a bit because Maxi at 6 is an absolute travesty and an absolute joke. So hopefully he gets pushed up the order. And Marcus Stoinis as well, as I spoke of, 59, really good by his standards as well. Ashton Turner, he is being booted into the SuperCoach Sun because of the fact that he has bottomed out, or at the very least hit his peak, I should say, as the cash cow. So he'll be on the trade block this week. Liam Scott, I wish I could say likewise as well, but he's bottom price virtually 52.3k, not offering anything. And aside from all that, the Strikers are on a bye this week as well, so offers no use whatsoever, even if he was selected, which he can't be. Jack Edwards, I ended up benching, obviously, with the Sixers Heat game being a washout. Opted to keep him because of the fact that he has that, not only DPP, but he's a traditional all-rounder as well, can, really have effect with the bat and with the ball as well. So held on to him. Jake Doran, literally just there, languishing on the bench as a loophole option. Moving across to the bowlers, Cooper Connolly, as I said, 76. I was very close to actually punting him and keeping Berndorf way back when, but I'm glad now that I actually kept Connolly. He will, I think, continue rolling the arm over, which is really good, but it's with the bat that he's having the most form, which is really, really good to see. So in the top three in the order for the Scorchers, and has looked really good as well. So thankful that I kept him. Tom Rogers from the Renegades had a very poor game by his standards. Got tonked across the match against the Stars, and got made a sort of a bit of a joke of with his final over. But 29, low by his standards, but I think he can bounce back. Kane Richardson was actually, I don't think he might have been rested potentially, but I think it just goes to show that he's kind of being phased out, and Rogers is one of those players that when it comes to their pace brigade, he's an important factor for the Renegades. So Rogers that was his lowest score of the season, actually, 29. Prior to that, he's had 39, 78, 111, 66, and 64. So he's probably due for a bit of a downer, but hoping he can bounce back this round in round 6. Wes Agar, spoke about him, utter disappointment, but went up in cash, so saved a little bit of salary cap there. Sutherland, again, spoke about him, disappointment, 16. He needs a massive bounce back game, and I don't have any faith in him whatsoever. In fact, and I called it, the week that I was bringing him into my team, I knew that he was just going to go to shit because it happened last season, and looking at his scoring, prior to me bringing him in, he scored 99, 118, and 63. Since I've brought him in, 42, 24, 16. So it's virtually being halved, or at least, going down by a fair margin week on week. So what's he going to score this week? An 8 potentially? Knock on wood he doesn't, but he's due for a turnaround in form. He's rolling the arm over. His batting actually hasn't been good at all, apart from in round 1 in the first game of that round, but hasn't taken a wicket in the past couple of rounds either. So really needs to step up his game, because the Renegades, they started the season pretty strongly, but they've fallen away massively, and they're actually in danger of being pushed down to the bottom of the table, considering the Stars have won their last couple and they are holding up the ladder as we speak. So, Sutho, get your shit together, mate. Henry Thornton as well, 27. The strikers, their bowling brigade had a pretty much a shocker. He took a wicket late in the piece and salvaged something. Still went up in price, 11.3k, which was nice to see, but it's kind of, I think, hit his peak now. His starting price is 102.6 at the commencement of the season, and now sits at 134.5. Has been okay, but 27 was his second lowest score of the season, outside of the 4 that he got in round 3. But other than that, he's had 3 scores in the 50s, 1 in the 40s, and he had that massive score in the second game of the double last round, or I should say in round 4, where he scored that 106. So, it's up to you if you want to hold him, but considering he is on the bye, and I imagine a lot of people at least have a minimum of 2 strikers in their team, you probably need to move him on. If you have a bit of bench depth, you could potentially use him as a bit of a loop. If someone early in the round plays, like, someone from the Heats or the, I was going to say the Thunder, but you'd want to be playing them on field anyway with the double, but maybe a player from the Scorchers, the Renegades, and then kind of assess from there. If your player on the bench doesn't go well enough, then look to punt Thornton, because the strikers are on the bye, as I said. So you can really make a decision right up until the last game if you really wanted to, with regards to whether it be Thornton or another strikers player, if you want to trade them out. And then I spoke of Jordan as well with the 28, which is what it is. And Wildermuth and Solzman, the non-playing players, sitting on the bench there in the bowlers section. That's not much we can do about that, unfortunately, especially with Wildermuth. Salzman, we obviously started as that traditional loophole player across both lines, but Wildermuth, it's just an annoyance. So we're hoping that he can actually play and provide some sort of, score or anything at this stage, really. But that's that. That's how we performed in round 5. So let's have a look at how we're going to approach round 6. So in terms of who has the double, I spoke of it. It is the Thunder. They have the double game. First up against the Heat, and then they play the third game against the Hurricanes at NG Stadium. The first game, the away game against the Heat at the Gabba. I've already got, as I said, Billings, who I brought into my team round just gone, likewise Agar. I think, having said all that, just be a little bit wary. I think I'm not too keen, and from the outset, I didn't want to overload my team with a heap of Thunder players. I think you want to kind of cap it at around about 4 to 5. I wouldn't go anything beyond that, just because of the fact that traditionally the Thunder have burnt me in the past, and I know they've actually been in some really good form to their own credit, but I think you kind of have to be a little bit wary. In their favour, it depends on the guys that you have already in your team, slash the guys you're targeting, but keep in mind that Bancroft and Sams won't be playing this game. I think Bancroft's been ruled out for the remainder of the season, and Sams is at least going to miss, I think it's 13 days, which is the concussion protocol that they have to adhere to. That is Cricket Australia. So, yeah, we'll just keep that in mind in terms of guys that you're targeting. And, yeah, that's something which may be a bit more favourable for guys that you have already in your team as well. So I'm hopeful that Billings does get pushed up the order without Bancroft being there, and maybe Agar, has a bit more reliance on him having a bit more lethality, I guess, with his bowling without Sams being there. So fingers crossed. But let us get into the trading side of things in a bit closer detail. So as I said, Ashton Turner, he is being launched out of my team at a rapid rate. And let us have a look at the Thunder players first and foremost. And the guys that I don't have in my team that I would be keen on, Davey Warner is definitely one. I think he's someone that is a kind of hit or miss type player, as you know, with the way that he bats. Scored a 74 in round 5, and prior to that has actually been pretty good. Or good enough, I will say. Scored a 17, which is kind of a bit iffy in round 1. And he scored 7 with the bat and 10 points with a catch. Round 2, he had 37, which 17 of those was through runs, and he had a run out as well. Round 3 had 29 points. 19 of those were with the bat, and then 10 with a catch. Round 4, he had 116 with 86 with the bat, strike rate bonus of 20, and the run rate bonus as well, I think it is, with 10. And then the round just gone, he had 74, 49 of those points were via runs, and the strike rate bonus, and then a catch as well. So he's pretty much positions himself in areas of the field where he can take a catch, which is one thing that I like about Davey Warner. But considering he is very much a hit or miss type player, he reminds me a bit of, an Alex Hales, but I think he's a bit more reliable compared to Alex Hales. Probably doesn't have the ceiling as much as Hales, but is that same sort of player that I think you kind of want on a double. And you're kind of riding by the seat of your pants if you don't have him in your team. So I think he's definitely someone that I want to have in my team. So he's definitely one I will bring in. So we'll get him in. Outside of that, the player that I'm keen on most is in the bowlers section. So let us have a look at the bowlers. We'll just have to work out who we're trading out. So I think Thornton at this stage will make way. Sutho, as being that all-round player, even though he's in some pretty shit form, we're going to be backing him in. We've obviously got Rogers as well, traditional bowler from the Renegades. Had a poor game, but I think with his role with the ball, I think by and large, he is in a position to actually score well most weeks. Connolly, likewise, just in terms of being that nice in-form all-rounder. Overton, I think it's up to you whether or not you want to trade him, but I think he's that sort of player that you want in your team from week to week, much like Maxi, much like, Matt Short when he's up and about, when he's actually fit. So he's not going to be traded to, out of my team. But if you are struggling for cash, I can see reasoning for getting rid of him. So yeah, it's totally up to you if you want to do it. But if you're getting rid of him this week, I would have, to look to get him back into your team the round after, just because, as I said, he's so lethal. He's that sort of player that you don't want to be missing out on him having a massive, massive game. And he's having pretty solid games. Like, he scored that 60 in one round and arguably had a pretty poor game against the Hurricanes because of the fact that he's able to either, perform with the bat or perform with the ball. You don't want to be missing out on a week where he's actually performing with both the bat and the ball. So he's staying in my team. But again, it's totally up to you, and it is cash dependent. But I think Henry Thornton, he's that sort of player. He's at that price point where I said, he's as a cash cow, he's kind of hit his peak. He has been quite valuable with the ball, but at that price point, there's no one else really that I'm looking to get rid of. Liam Scott, 100% I would, but he's only priced at 52.3k. Jack Edwards, all-rounder, want to keep him. Philippi, likewise as well. You could probably potentially loop Billings from here on out as well, because I think the Thunder have the first game in every single round that remains. So you could potentially put the emergency on Billings and then use, obviously, Doran as that looping player, which is kind of the reason why we got Doran, and then switch it between either, Billings or Philippi. And, if Billings kills it, obviously you put Doran on field, and then you put Billings into the batsman category and then put him on field. And maybe even loop him as well if we have another loophole, which we have a whole heap of course, with Wildermuth and Salzman as well, and Scott, I should say. But I think, as I said, long story short, Thornton goes out of the side, and it will allow me enough cash to bring in the man that I'm looking at. Actually, just short, so I'll need to trade out the third player, but in this case, we are going to bring in Chris Green, 145.7k, went up 16k on the round just gone. So there were some people that brought him in early, and kudos to you if you did. You actually chose the right guy to bring in early compared to Agar. But I think he's probably one of the most lethal, bowlers for the Thunder across the journey. I've always enjoyed having him in my team when it comes to a double, and he's just ever reliable and can actually hit with the bat as well if he is called upon late in the piece, if the top order does tumble for the Thunder. So he scored 106 in round one. Round two, he actually put up a donut. Round 3, 32, round 4, 61, and round 5 just gone 113. So he's taken, 3 wickets in round 1, 0 wickets in round 2, round 3, 1 wicket, round 4, 1 wicket, and round 5, 3 wickets, and economy rate bonus and the like. And plus, he always has that bonus as well of the dot ball bonuses as well, because a lot of opposition players just try and defensively, block him because he is so lethal, but he does get through the gates at various stages and is able to get a wicket or at least an edge, and a bit of a catch to his teammates as well off the back of that and a wicket. So he comes into the team. So that means that Agar and Thornton go out, Warner and Green in. And a little bit of an interesting one now, because who do we trade out? This is the hard part. And it's like, do we trade out Philippi for a week and maybe try and bring him in again? Philippi, mind you, has a break even of 10 against the Stars. Traditionally against them, he has scored, let's just have a quick look at that, 9, 39 and 16, so not the best, and plays at the MCG as well. So how does he actually perform at the MCG? We should probably have a look at that. So MCG, he averages a 40.8, which is kind of middle of the road, or a little bit higher than middle of the road, but full history against the Stars. Let's have a look at that. He's had a bit of a mixed bag. He's had a couple of big games back in the 2021-2022 season, but overall he's had 39, 9, 16, 20, 153, 159, 22, 21, 9, 20, 44, 18 and 22. So we can probably bank on him at least scoring around about the 20 mark looking at that, but he's probably someone that we could put in the gun, but we probably, in order to try and work out who we have to trade out, in line with the cash that we need, is working out the guy that we want to bring in with our third trade. And I do think that guy is Lockie Ferguson. He's dropped 24.7k on the round just gone. Didn't have the best game, only scored an 8. And the game prior to that as well, only scored a 10. So he hasn't taken a wicket in the past couple of games, but has been pretty good in the previous 3 games to that. He took 3 wickets, 2 wickets, and then 1 wicket in the first 3 rounds, scoring 95, 50, and 52. And when we're talking about dot ball bonuses with Chris Green, the same applies even more so to Lockie Ferguson. He's had 10 dot balls, 6, 13, 8, and 9. So really, really do like the look of him, and taken some economy rate bonuses as well. So is someone that I think you should consider having in your team because of the fact that, he is a very, very nice bowler. And as I said, without Sams being there, you do need someone to step up into the fold. And I will think that it will either be Agar or Ferguson. Chris Green that I'm banking on kind of taking a wicket or two. But, when we're talking about Very similar to when I brought Dwarshuis into my team. I brought him into my team at the same time that coincided with Abbott going out of the team for the Sixers because he was called up to the test squad. And I guess the basis of that was the fact that without Abbott being there as kind of that focal placement, Dwarshuis was relied upon a little bit more. So definitely helped in that case there, and he busted out a very, very nice score. But having said all that, you want to be mindful of not overloading your team with a heap of Thunder players, because if they absolutely get pummeled in the with the ball, it means that the chances of you putting up a decent score is quite limited. Likewise as well when it comes to overloading with the Thunder batters, if they get bowled out cheaply, if Warner goes out cheaply, if Billings goes out cheaply, if you have 3, 4 players in your team, that makes up 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you have 5 or 6 players, that makes up almost half your scoring team. So really be mindful of that, not overloading. So yeah, having said that, outside of Ferguson, Tom Andrews I don't mind at a bit of a cheaper price, 64.1k. Scored a 36, 29 and a 37. He's taken a wicket in every game that he's played, so I don't mind him at a cut price if you are struggling for a bit of coin. But I am more of a fan of jumping on those guys that are traditionally the more tried and tested type player, and Ferguson is that caliber. Rutherford's another one as well. He's dropped 75.9k. Has started rolling the arm over as a genuine all-rounder as well, but has started the season like absolute filth, really. He scored a 3, 8, 2 and 11, all of those via runs with the bat, and bowled in round 5 and didn't take a wicket, 2 dot balls, took a catch in the field. Then he scored 39 with the bat and a 25 strike rate bonus. So I don't mind him as well at that price point. And I do think, he's break-even 7. So chances are that he will go up in price. But again, I'm more keen on Lockie Ferguson, I think, as that traditional bowler. And I'm not too confident when it comes to Rutherford, which are the famous last words. But outside of that, Jilks, I'm not happy with. I don't rate him. Ollie Davies, he came in late as that replacement for Sams and Bancroft because of the fact that he had the late call-up. He was actually in the hotel battling the flu. To his credit, came out and batted, but didn't do too well. But if it wasn't, for the injury to Sams, he would 100% be in my team, as that real lethal all-rounder for the Thunder. So he's unfortunately unavailable, so we can't choose him. So we go for the next best in Lockie Ferguson. So he will come into our team, and it means that we need to trade out someone of the value of 136.1k. So again, it's like, do we back into Sutherland or do we trade him out? Do we trade out who's going to be? Stoinis wouldn't get it done for us. Do we trade out a Philippi? Potentially, maybe in this case, because I think the Thunder play first, and Philippi, I don't. It's either like going for Philippi on a single or going for Ferguson on a double, and I think with push coming to shove, we would be doing that. So with that, we're going to have to swing some things around as well when it comes to our DPPs. So, we could easily try and get Philippi in next week. Keep in mind as well that the Hurricanes have the double then in round 7 as well. So, you could always go for, 2 Thunder, go for an extra, Hurricanes player in preparation, maybe if you want to do that. But again, I think the guys that you want to go on, it's so hard to choose and cherry pick, between a Warner or, potentially, as I said, Rutherford or a Ferguson. So I think in this case, you're kind of hedging your bets here by having all these sort of lethal players that could go off at any one time in across both games. But yeah, I think Edwards I want to keep in my team. Philippi can be hit or miss. Connolly we don't want to get rid of. Stoinis is in some good form. Maxi's, big upside there. So I think it's probably going to have to be Philippi in this case. And what it means is we'll just switch Salzman. Actually, we'll switch. It's going to matter? No. We will put, so the way things look now, we've just switched, for those people tuning into the audio podcast, sorry, I was just switching some things around. And what I've done is because Philippi was in the wicketkeeper position, I've had to switch him into the batsman and then into the bowlers category in order to bring in Lockie Ferguson. And the upside, I guess, here, or the silver lining, it has allowed me to have 33K in the bank for next week. And what the trades look like here, finalised, it is Ashton Turner, Henry Thornton, and Josh Philippi out for Davey Warner, Chris Green, and Lockie Ferguson. So let us complete those trades. As I said, 33K in the bank. And the way things look here, we will be able to swing some things around, and we'll put Edwards on field. Obviously, Overton not playing. Scott's not playing either, so we'll be able to use both Overton and Scott as loopholes if we can, which in this case we can't, unfortunately, because we don't have any playing bench players. But if in your case you do, you can always do that. Solo goes into the batsman category, and then Ferguson comes in. So that's kind of the way things are looking. So in terms of the double game round players, I've got Billings, Warner, Agar, Green, and Ferguson. So 5 double game round players, which, as I said, I wouldn't go any more than that. Any more than 50% of your team, you're kind of cruising for a bit of a bruising. I would have been even happy going for 4 players. If I wasn't going for a Thunder player, I will go through ever so briefly guys that I would be eyeing off. If you're looking for a genuine cash cow, it probably would be Finn Allen, -74 break even. If he hits his projected score of 28, he would go up 24.7K. But in this case, he's not going to serve any use to me. If you're getting him in, I would be doing so as a loophole option off the bench, considering his up and down form. But even then, it's kind of a bit of a waste, I think. I'd much prefer to go for an extra double game week player compared to a Finn Allen who, this is a sort of player that a lot of people forget. Started the season with scores of 6, 4, 0, and a 20. And then scored obviously 85 and 113, but he is just as likely to have a shit game as he is a big game. So I am not confident in that. Outside of that, I do like Lance Morris. Jai Richardson, I don't think he's going to be available for the first game coming up on the 7th of Jan. I have to just wait and see with that. But, I mean, Lance Morris has been in some really good form. He has had wickets galore. Like, he's scored a 51, 54, 74, and a 98. So I really like him. And I think his break-even is, -11. So don't mind him at all. But when we're talking about as well, I just will say this, in terms of getting guys into your team as a bit of a cash cow, it is always fraught with danger. And that's part of the reason why I didn't get Doggett into my team heading into round 5. Doggett, he only scored a 5, and his break even for the round, I think it was I think it was -70 odd, like similar to Finn Allen. Yes, he went up 17.6K, but now he has a break even of -10, and he scored you a 5. So unless you're sort of bringing that player in as a genuine cash cow that you're able to loop off the bench, it minimises the risk. If you're bringing in that player to then play on field, I don't like it, really, because it can really hurt you and bite you in the ass. But totally up to you. Whatever your risk profile is, feel free to do it. But Lance Morris, as I said, and Finn Allen are probably ones that I'd be keen on most. And then, of course, Bethel as well, who's really flashed some nice form, -9 break even for the Renegades, and worked his way into some nice form. He's had scores of 3, 40, 2, 67, and 111. And the scores of 40, 67, and 111 came off some really nice form with the bat, with a 30, 21, and 49. And he's actually rolling the arm over as well in the past couple of games. So I think he's bowled 3 to 4 overs, potentially maximum, across his previous 2 games. So do think that he is being worked into their bowling attack a bit more now to round out the season, just considering they've seen how lethal he can be and at least restrictive with the ball. So I don't mind him. Nikhil Chowdhury is someone as well, considering that the Hurricanes have the double coming up next round, you could be looking at. His break-even is a lowly -5. Again, done a majority of damage with the bat, 20, 42, and 22 in his past 3 games, and taken 2 wickets out of his past 3 games. So there's that, if you wanted to go down that route. And looking down the list, that's about it when we're talking about guys with a low break even. Yeah, that's probably about it. I mean, there is Xavier Bartlett as well. He is probably one of the more in-form pace bowlers in the competition. Don't mind him. Coming off a score of 137, a bit pricey, 183. And what's his break even actually? 68. So it is definitely achievable by his standards. And that's about it, I think. Matt Short's not going to play, obviously. Striker's on the bye. May return next week. So keep that in mind, because you may need to find a bit of coin to get Short into your team. And 249.1k, you might find it hard to do so. But just keep all that in mind. And that is it. That is virtually our team. In terms of VC and C, to round things out, I think Chris Green has been in the best form. Agar as well. I mean, he had that putrid game. Do you go against the grain? I think a lot of people, given Supercoach, a lot of people have recency bias. I still think a lot of people will be freaked out by the fact that he scored a 4. But discounting that, he scored a 102 and a 104 in his first 2 games for the Thunder. So, and done pretty well with dot balls as well. So if you want to go contrarian, which I think a lot of people, again, will be scared off by, you could definitely go down that route. Otherwise, Chris Green. I think for me, I'm chopping and changing between both of these guys, and Chris Green and Wes Agar. I'm considering going for the higher upside, sort of, I guess, higher risk, but in the form of Wes Agar more than anything. Just because I need to make up ground when it comes to ranks. And so we'll put the VC on Agar for now, but not definitive. I could easily change that to Green, but no one else I'd be keen on doing it with. And then with the captaincy, it would have to be... it's a tough one, this one. Maybe a Maxi, maybe, but issue is he's not bowling. He hasn't bowled for the past 2-3 games. Could we go a Stoinis? We're not going to be touching Sutherland. But having said that, I just want him to really put out a big game first and foremost as a non-captain. Maybe a Rogers against Perth. A bit of a tough ask though. Not confident in Jordan. Yeah, probably a Maxi maybe at a pinch. But we're hopeful that Agar or Green put up a big score with the bat and with the ball in their first game or 2 for the double. Otherwise, there's Cooper Connolly. So, yeah, don't mind that either. But that's it, ladies and gents. The video is drawing out, so we will end it there. As always, hope you had a very, very nice round, or a better round than me at least, and you avoided most of the carnage when it came to the rained-out game, unlike me. And if you have any comments and questions, as always, hit us up on socials. You can hit me up at DamoJ88 on Twitter /X, or likewise the official account here, which is at supercoach_edge. And if you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to list down your comments, questions, everything else below. And if you are tuning into the podcast, the audio podcast side of things, feel free to give us a like, give us a rating, all that sort of stuff on, I think you can do it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So I really would appreciate that. And likewise on YouTube, give us a like, give us a sub if you haven't already. We do appreciate all of the support. And with that, ladies and gents, thank you so much, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.